Chilly here with Sirius Dallas Moon. This is wartime broadcasting. I'm gonna have to find a name for that. Um, Sol Rahu, Jupiter hour, Saturn day, and the Moon is applying to oppose Pluto from Leo. And I see several colleagues talked about narcissism and astrology. So first of all, with Sol Rahu, embodiment of the heart is important, and fated discussions about the Sun. Pluto is in sign of astrology, which is opposing Leo. Leo is the heart, but it's also the self. Sun exalts in Aries. Neptune calls us to curate the self holistically. And Leo is also connected because Leo is the heart. Um, when the heart is healthy, we have a healthy sense of self. When not, then one of the psychological conditions that people can have is what is described as narcissistic personality, because Sun is also personality. So um, basically, the Sun exalts in Aries. Sun is the heart, which is Leo, is the ability to shine as ourselves. Also very much connected to fathers. And relations between fathers, father and son, or anything that's surrounding the Sun, leaders. Now, if people are growing well with the confidence and a healthy sense of pride, not toxic pride, then the personality is confident, safe, radiant. Um, but when not, then it can affect the sense of happiness, the confidence, the heart rate. Um, Now, people are looking for the astrology of narcissism, basically, soul that is not well aspected um, can derive um, vicinity of these issues, and then it's basically about curation to Sun. So that can be through Regulus, that can be through what is the planet that is mitigating, let's say, if there is a square, if there's an opposition with Sun and one of the malefics. Um, yes, then there could be mitigating planets that facilitate their well-being. For example, I have Sun opposite Saturn, and um, basically the Moon sextiles the Sun and trines Saturn. And from my perspective, um, when I had to deal with these topics, whether within myself or others, then um, self-care in the form of emotional nourishment was assisting. Um, or, for example, so in astrology, we would seek to curate. A lot of people that suddenly had, I don't know, we had that Venus talisman in the first decan of Pisces. That would be remedial to any issues of both Venus or Mars related oppositions of Taurus and Scorpio. So people that have either in the natal chart or in synastries, these people that have the nodes on Taurus and Scorpio, this Venus or even the Sol Rahu can be very remediating for them. Um, and we also want to pay attention to the topics of ritual abuse, because this creates narcissism by design. Basically, it is designed to, which is why, at least knowing that zero rape, zero slavery society is where the wealth is, the happiness is, the confidence is, the radiance is, um, that is also a path towards um, and this is basically the Sun Rahu topic, where we deal with the, what creates or not a personality, a confidence, a sense of self, and inspiration or leadership qualities. For example, men that raped in wartime, they have difficulty communicating because people don't trust them. Let's say a man that raped or trafficked could tell to a person, oh, if there is this and that, you must run away from here, from there. Even though what he says can be true, it can be, the people won't listen to him because they would fear that if they do what he says, they will be trafficked, they will be raped, they would be betrayed. And this is where topic of redemption, the underground, yes, in Hebrew we called it machtarot, that unfortunately is so connected to ritual abuse. Everywhere you hear the word redemption or geulah is connected to ritual abuse. Okay? And this is important because today, for example, we were at the shelter, even though after 7th October that for the people within the Israeli borders, they did not have outside saviors, so to speak. And people were waiting for people to bring them, to clean the shelter, or to bring them food, or to bring them water. And then you saw people, there were people praying to Jewish God, people opening Quran. And how should I say that? All of that is not sovereign in the face of ritual abuse and has not proven itself. Okay? In fact, the book that was smuggled that I studied in high school, somehow I find this book about the time of the Holocaust and the underground and so on, and it shows me certain things with the word redemption and fighting for something supposedly patriotism. And this was showing me that this was ritual abuse, that this was the traffickers. Now, okay, so סגרתי. Well, if we have to go, then we take some coffee. And it's not about blame and shame. לא פה, אוקיי. אוקיי, it's okay. אז כנראה עוד מעט תהיה, אני מתכוננת. בסדר. בסדר. So basically, first of all, what I'm teaching from frontiers, from civilian frontiers, don't wait for anybody to come to rescue. Secondly, anything that has the word redemption in it, or any religion symbolism, even if secular, is connected to something like Epstein, but what created Epstein, which is even worse. Um, Third, what people call narcissism is basically ritual abuse. Okay, okay. Okay. And thirdly, from astrology perspective, the entire 20 years of Pluto opposing Leo are going to be uncovering what was narcissism or megalomania or any sort of inflated ego related issues deriving from, while people become disillusioned from those things, and they have to remember that anything that has redemption in it, anything that claims to be underground, for example, the partisans raped Bulgarian women. My grandfather had to run with the partisans, but he had typhus. So, fortunately, they didn't take him for battle. Um, but those partisans, yes, when they were in um, Eastern Europe, they raped. And those that rape are never liberators. They never yield sovereignty. We saw how people, civilians, waited at war and they had to save themselves. Now, this is also not about judgment, shame, and blame towards what people call narcissistic, because it was created by suffering without ability to die. That's what they call redemption. And yes, um, and this is, yes, what created that type of susceptibility to mind control and so on and so forth. Not about blame and shame. And even if people think about the healing or so on and so forth, it requires unconditional love, and unconditional love is not compromising our boundaries. Okay? And unconditional love is not coming with expectations that somebody would heal from something, rather than to tend to abolish slavery and rape is the cure for narcissism. And that allows to love that is actually loving. This is the difference between heart embodiment to power abuse. For people that have dealt with those topics, this is what is to be tended to. And it's particularly important to understand this during wartime. Okay? because people that deal with what people call narcissism, basically it's a prolonged trauma without ability to exit trauma. Of course, they can't save us, okay? And if they can, it's by them saving themselves, or if they can, is by not from our expectation for saviors. In fact, when the collective nervous system is so hard embodied, it dilutes narcissism. Okay. And those things are almost natural resolves from also conflict situations with Neptune in sign of war, because Neptune is that dual sense. When we talk about narcissism in wartime, we don't ask about what kind of personality this person has, because in wartime all personalities are malleable. Scary? Absolutely. um, because in under stress, sometimes people try to channel, people try to this, people try to that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's just the nature of wartime. And yes, this is where this Sun Rahu reminds us that underneath all appearances, but we all die the same, we all decay the same. And but what you need to know about for this redemption thing, because these people were exposed to a lot of death, where they could have been the one that died in a blink of an eye, then they can develop a feeling of being of something that is not able to die. Some of them even suffer from that. And knowing that, I hope puts the news in perspective. Okay, for whichever side or border or whatnot. Now, the more ritual abuse there is in society, the more narcissism, megalomania, and so on is in society, or patriarchal. Even if it is matriarchy, by the way. And the more aware people are, who tend to embody the heart, then the more the frequency of embodied heart rises, and the congested energy that people call narcissism decreases. So yes, afflictions to Sun can be any heart aspects, adjacency to the malefics, or to the nodes. Right now, for example, we have Sun Rahu, which means we want to embody the heart, but we're not there yet. Also, we are fated to embody the heart, but we're not there yet. So, and throughout the coming 20 years, we have a planet that is opposing Leo, and this is a planet where everything that was, yes, of leadership qualities is being questioned for its nervous system stability. Yes, it's the guillotine o'clock. Um, not all monarchies died in the guillotine o'clock, and so on and so forth. But for example, Israel has Saturn Leo. Yes, Pluto and Leo, but it has Saturn Leo, and the Saturn is activated by Pluto in Aquarius. And this is where all the Israeli prime ministers that have been whining and dining in Epstein Island are being exposed with their military affiliations, because it's co-present with Mars. So this is, yes, the moon will be applying to oppose Pluto. Can you appease narcissistic people by applying to their pride? How should I say that? Very risky, because one runs the risk of becoming, of how should I say that? Of going on that journey with them. So, yeah, I don't claim to be able to, yes, cure anything, but and if person dealing with these aspects themselves, then they should see what is, for opposition, what is the point of talus, what are the harmonious aspects that are to the sun, or are the talismans with harmonious aspects to the sun, and that can facilitate remediation. Um, mm, mm, mm. Why do they create by design these harms to the personality? Because it can turn the sense of pride to something that's outside of the personality. Um, and so, yeah. But knowing those things is it relevant to say how to deal with narcissistic people and so on and so forth? Maybe to some, but because we are in wartime, then knowing that those that are at the positions where they should have been the savior are dealing with that is important. That, I think, is the most important teaching for wartime. Um, and if we get that, then there's less pondering, and be very aware when somebody tries to gather people around them. How should I say that? Be very wary of over domineering people over a person or a group at this time. Um, So more to say. Yeah, this is about what I have to say. Oh, and very important. Um, Zero rape, zero slavery wins the war. Those who get that, get that. Those who, how should I say that, try to make people do things supposedly to save the group, should be immediately killed by the group if they are to sustain. Whether, for example, it's for weapon or for food. Okay? Again, if a person, I don't know, let's say the group has some water and the guard wants some water. Fantastic. But if they ask for something of uh, um, slavery form or something of uh, um, rape form, then immediately that guard should be assassinated by entire group. Then they would get the food and they would get the munition. As long, even if when he is assassinated, is not allowed to rape him, is not allowed to torture him, is not allowed to rape him. These are energy conservations. These are energy conservations tip to funnel energy of sovereignty to sovereignty. And anybody that agreed with him asking for such thing or thought to do that, um, if they thought to do that themselves, they should immediately be informed that the wealth is not residing there. If they thought to make another person do that, they should be immediately assassinated with the god. Conservation of energy. This preserves the water, particularly water, because excess heat is undesired at war. The conditions of this are more important than any identity, bloodline, lineage, sex, gender, anything. Okay? And they had to safeguard the people, have the best strategic intelligence, the alchemy, best access to water, best sense of trust and connection in the community, and best defense. Zero rape, zero torture, also to what seems to be like enemies. Proceed on. Okay, from a little bit about the alchemy of that. For water to not evaporate, we need not to go to excess heat. Rape creates excess heat, both inflammation in the body and on resources, it creates lack of access to water. What's more important than, how to say it, people call it chastity. What's more important than chastity is zero rape. Okay? Teachings of the water. Communities that run by that have water. Um, A sense of community is very important in wartime. Um, of course, there are situations where people say one to themselves and so on and so forth. Yes, this is where, how should I say that? To safeguard the sense of self. But when is zero rape, zero slavery, people will not be so susceptible to the more extreme situations. Prayer can help, but only if those conditions are kept. If not, then prayer is not going to help. In fact, ritual abuse consists of having people pray and still have bad things happen to them, with nobody coming to save them, and then they are being forced into what they call redemption to the new God, be it Christ or Antichrist. So, prayer, whether you do prayer or not do prayer, is okay as long as you maintain zero rape, zero slavery society. Rest is incredibly important. In wartime is no time for the projections that people had on one another. If there is a risk that somebody will be rapey or enslaving, it doesn't matter if this person is near, far, same origin, not same origin, is not economic to stay with such person. And is also people will not tend to listen to such person. And those that do is because of mind control susceptibility that negates sovereignty. Which means that such people try to perpetuate war because they can only rely on mind control rather than unless they get the zero rape, zero slavery thing. So, more things that are arising this time. Mars hour. Mars squaring Uranus. We are separating from the square, but usually the separate from a square is the bomb, is the boom, as we saw today. It's too early for me to contemplate the release from the square, except that I see in wartime, in actual reality, people that are traffickers or rapists, yes, there's no trust in what they say. They can't command, okay? Nobody trusts their command because they contributed to rape. Very likely it's going to affect militaries as well. But I'm a civilian. I cover military topics, but I'm not military person, and I was not military person. So yeah, I'm a civilian with all that entails. Okay. Oh, it's time to cook my potatoes. Yes. So again, alchemy, water is zero rape, zero slavery, and all the other things to do with rape. Okay? Let's say, I don't know, somebody doesn't is not that much into or whatnot, says nothing about them. They saved me incompatibility. Okay? So these are good mindsets for people. Okay, good mindsets for people at this time. And those things protect water resources and clear fresh water. The water that we can get for ourselves, rather than rely on rescue forces, are more likely to be better water. At all cases, people that need to go, that can, how should I say that? Let's say people drive somewhere or people go somewhere. At any cases, immediate stop must be if a person needs to refresh themselves. The people that need to go outside, they have good instincts. If somebody suddenly needs to go outside at work, suddenly needs to go here, suddenly needs to go there, if it is from confinement to outside of confinement, immediately follow that person, even if there is missiles. Okay? That person can take people out of the ghetto. Um, uh, and I want to tell another story that in previous years I didn't understand. Um, a neighbor of my mom was killed in suicide bombing, where they supposedly came to help a lady, and that lady had a bomb and she exploded on them. In the past, I did not understand why did that lady had a bomb, but it is because she wasn't thinking this man come to rescue her, but to rape her, and then she exploded with all of them. And she had good reasoning to think so, both from her community and because of the redemption things that were happening in ritual abuse. This would be the training also of military people. So, Yes? Okay, they switched missiles to planes. Yes. Okay. United States is topping UN Security Council. Yes, yes, thank you. Yeah. Okay. Um, on zero slavery and rest. Regulated nervous system. Zero slavery prevents cultification of society. If your society is not cultifying, it will have less enemies. For example, in China, communities that are communities, not cults, that have good women rights and so on, they remain throughout entire patriarchal China. But communities that are cults, even as those cults are around yoga and stuff like that, they were severely attacked because they were seen as threat to the regime. So in changing regimes, avoid anything that is cultifying, which means if everybody has to recruit to labor, work overtime, ta 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 ta, cultifying. If people have to sacrifice themselves, okay, traffication and arranged marriageation, okay, of society is cultifying. These people will be persecuted. You can eat by their table, you can appreciate their gestures, but you cannot join their societies. This means that whichever the regime is going to be in the region is not going to see a threat in the people, the civilians. Because if the civilians are not vehemently religious or vehemently trafficky or vehemently with work, everybody has to, then these are civilians. They're going to require human rights. But other than that, they're not going to rebel when given human rights. They're not going to suddenly cultify, outturn the regime, and so on and so forth. They're not interested in that. Those that claim to outturn the regime in the name of, let's say, women's rights, as happens in Iran, they need to show women's rights at every aspect of the way. Zero rape, zero slavery at every part of the process. Okay, as my father told to me, he said, he sent me a meme with quote of almost Epstein, of Einstein. And he said to me, what a man says, you can listen. But more important to listen is to what a man does. This is true to any regime. They say they're gonna liberate women's rights in Iran. Okay, where are women's rights here? Are women trafficked? Are there a lot of attempts to arrange marriages? Is there a push towards birthing and population? yes, this is, like I said, love that is actually loving. Yeah, I don't see anything new. Ma, this is what I do. Thank you. Yeah. Ken. Mm-hmm. Now, when we, as much as we can, stay away from those things that are calling for people to work, or for people to marry, or for any other trafficking type, um, then, and again, it doesn't mean not to help one another. The other way around. The other way around. But it means that we can't use that as an excuse to enslave people ourselves. Um, and when we, yes, stay away from such overly organized groups, because those overly organized groups, they want to traffic their people and sacrifice them and call it redemption. Okay? And in that situation, while the situation is calling for not to wait for savior from regimes, is also calling to not cultify our society. Okay, not. um, so Oman says that Israel and United States violated um, international court. Um, so let's see Oman natal chart. Naturally, everything that calls people to become members of group, okay? Now, of course, if people run into some people that are forcing them to convert or forcing them to this, okay, but the minute they can go outside of the group and vanish is best for them. Um, Midheaven Sol, 28 degrees Gemini, is conjoining Uranus for, I think, Israel and NATO. Rahu, 18 degrees Taurus, Uranus, last degree Capricorn, ascendant not too far from Al-Qaid, and the Genghis Khan eclipses were affecting, but with Ketu on the ascendant, Mercury conjoining Procyon, and indeed they apply to Procyonic terms, okay, which means they want to apply to all kinds of world war and world peace treaties. Um, Basically, these are also moves to prevent United States from taking over the Security Council extensively, but then perhaps they should have thought about this in the years preceding to now, um, because the Arab lobbies have quite significant power in the UN. I remember something from my model UN. Um, the big trees, Saturn Neptune in the 8th house of Oman, which means it's affecting their military capacity and resources. Eclipses are with Ketu on their Mars, further depletes their military capacity and resources, which means that they could shoot. Depletion of weapon. Let's say if I say, oh, what's the hidden stock? Weapon trade. Depletion of the stock, they probably are going to fire. They do have a Pluto, which means little bombs, big bombs, nuclear bombs at store. Particularly in neighboring countries. But they could shoot also on themselves, or the weapon that they sold could be shooting at them. It's or the oil that they sold for weapon could be targeting them, which is the truth. The truth. So this is the Neptune, Uranus in Taurus. Well, Uranus crossed their row a while ago. It's in their 9th house of international relations. Venus in Leo. Pluto is opposing that Venus. So they are in tension in the international relation arena. As we can see, they call to mitigate the power of United States. But then we have to think about United States not being all that rich in oil. Otherwise, they wouldn't build coal mines. Okay, coal mines is also for the refineries. Um, and but this shows that Oman is dealing with challenge coming from the 6th house, because Pluto is in the 6th house, and its challenge directly permeates the country. The challenge is the structural challenge of contracts, particularly around peace treaties and war treaties. Mercury Procyon is the agreements and contracts around peace and war. If they were favored, then it could be having a caveat at this time. Saturn Regulus basically tells us that they have a structure that is, it can also be structure of regal figures, for example, even either their monarchy or any leaders and monarchies, again, regal figures that are of worldly dispositions. It can even mean Trump, because if United States has such power, and yes, this is coming from 6th house. They might be required to provide oil for themselves at this time, which they probably can, although usually countries aspire to be Norwegian, and they might be needing to self-sustain with their structures of oil, and be serving themselves, because 6th house is also where we provide a service, that the work that we do for others. And here the ruler is in the house, in the 1st house, which means self-serving, working for oneself. Pluto means oil, Saturn is infrastructure, so it can be that they may have built oil refineries or are building oil refineries, but those would be requiring either also the oil to come from them, uh, and their oil is coming from neighboring countries. And this through, because Scorpio is the water of the well, the way, where they dig the oil might no longer be in the border of their countries. Every third house runs the risk, even if they have their own resources. If it was second house, would be their own. Eighth house, hidden either their own or neighboring country. Third house is the neighboring countries in the vicinity. So they probably are building oil refineries for themselves, but they would also eventually need to source the oil themselves, which could make them at war with their neighboring countries. Um, this is as per Oman. Okay, I think it is shit ton of teachings. Right now, and that and let that episode go on air.